Hey everybody, Coop here. It's time for my thoughts on Armor Core 6 after 100 hours in the game. So Armor Core 6 has left a lot of people kind of confused and a bit divided. Some people have been avoiding this game because it's a mecha style game and they prefer the sort of swords and magic fantasy that is normal in a game like Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Some people have been avoiding it because it's a shooter type game, and again, people prefer that sort of melee combat. The question really is the game any good, and what are my thoughts on it? So the short answer for you is, the game is really good and you should get it. Yeah, no, for real though, it's actually really good. The core experience is so much fun and it's so good. Definitely recommend it, but let's get into it. So when you first start playing through the game really pushes you to be changing your build and updating your build to adjust to different bosses and different missions. This was both fun and frustrating at the same time. I got too attached to a certain setup and then got annoyed when I had to change it too much. I didn't mind really swapping weapons and things like that, but swapping chests and legs made it feel like I was piloting a completely different mech when I really wanted to just keep playing the mech that I had grown attached to. So what I'll say is this is a really great strategy to get you through your first playthrough as you're working through the game, unlocking parts and learning all the mechanics of Armor Core 6. Some people have complained about the helicopter, the first boss. Some people have complained about Juggernaut or Balteus, you know, the big missile guy who goes. And there are specific builds, by the way, that completely own these bosses. And if you're interested, I can make some guides on that. Let me know in the comments. But when you first encounter these bosses, they feel completely impossible, especially Balteus. I've seen this all over the internet, TikTok, everywhere. I'm sure I said the same thing that you were saying when you first fought these bosses, which is, how the hell do I dodge all these freaking missiles? I can say with confidence, after 100 hours of playing the game, that it is a massive skill issue, myself included. Every missile in the game is dodgeable, every single attack is dodgeable, and no hitting missions is way easier than you might think. But in particular, every missile in this game, while many of them look similar, each one has a different tracking pattern, and as you become familiar with the different tracking patterns, you understand that every missile has a specific way or direction to be dodged, and then you just mastered it and you will dodge all of them. It's kind of like strafing certain magic projectiles in Elden Ring. Once you figure it out, you're just like, oh, you can just basically completely ignore them. So a great example here is I'm going to throw some footage of me killing Balteus with the worst mech in the game, the Jailbreak mech that you're forced to use in Chapter 5.
30%. Left shoulder ammunition at 10%.
No way! That was easy! I thought this was going to be really hard. We didn't even run out of ammo. One of the criticisms that people have said about the game is that the story isn't very great or isn't very captivating. What you need to remember is this is a FromSoft game. The story is a very slow burn, and I can promise you that by playing the game through fully to its ending and getting all of the endings, there are 3 endings, by the way, you will be rewarded for your time. Watch the cutscenes, listen to the dialogue. While things might seem a little confusing and there's a lot of different characters at the beginning, you will quickly see what they're doing with the story by the time you get to the end of your first playthrough, and then it just gets more interesting and complex as you go through the next ones. Each playthrough continues building the story on top of the next one, and I actually really like this storytelling format. I would love to see this in other FromSoft titles, because this really gave good incentive to play through New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus, not just to unlock different parts and stuff, but also because the story just keeps evolving and changing, and there's lots of interesting intrigue and twists and turns that happen in the story in New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus. So definitely, if you buy this game, definitely play it all the way, like finish New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus for sure. You will miss out if you don't do that. So I do need to address the elephant in the room. Dunkey, one of my personal favorite reviewers and content creators, made a review on Armor Core 6 where he called it too easy.
Sekiro was my game of the year in 2019, and Elden Ring was my game of the year last year. Armored Core 6 is nowhere near that level of quality. This is more like a guilty pleasure game. This game is stupid. This is mindless monkey mush that is like one cognitive step beyond Dynasty Warriors and Diablo. if I'm making this game sound easy, yeah, it's really easy.
So yeah, people have said that the game is too easy once you run one of the broken builds. One is the Invalidator, a video that I made right here, which is double Zimmerman shotguns and double stun needles. Or the one that Donkey uses is double Gatling guns and double Songbird grenade launchers. The truth is, there are several builds like this that are way too powerful for PvE and PvP, and they completely invalidate that core PvE experience that I just talked to you about. Changing your build, shaping your mech, learning the attack patterns of the bosses, and then, you know, besting them. The entire core experience of Armor Core 6 is the balance of becoming skilled and dodging the enemy's attacks and tailoring your mech for the mission. And these overpowered builds directly contradict this idea, this entire core concept, because they're frankly just like way too good. So as someone with over 2,000 plus hours in Elden Ring, I'm not super surprised about this, to be honest. Elden Ring had bleed builds, pre-nerf Moonveil, Comet Azure, so many ways to completely ignore the actual gameplay of the game. And honestly, at this point, I can't tell whether this is intentional or not, but I am seriously critical of these types of builds, and I personally would rather have some sort of easy mode toggle than really insanely imbalanced builds like this for PvE. To me, it's just bad game design. It teaches PvE players that they can just roll over the game with these sorts of builds. For me, that the presence of those types of builds is a genuine flaw in game design and is frustrating. Now that you know, and pretty much everybody already knows about these builds, they've been shared a million times, and it is frustrating to know that now if you want to kind of have like experience the actual intended gameplay of Armor Core 6, that you basically need to intentionally ignore those types of builds so that you don't just invalidate the entire game. Like I played through a bunch of the game with the Invalidator, and it's just silly. It's just really, really silly. And if you haven't seen the gameplay with these things, like watch, like here's a boss battle for you. This is a great clip. Where is he?
One PCA craft left.
Code 78E received. System processing.
Oh my god, look at that. Oh! So this still leads me directly into my feelings about PvP. So I already made a video about this, which is right here if you want to see my extended thoughts and criticisms about the systems around PvP. But I'll try and keep this part short because I've already made a video of touching on my criticisms. The more hours I dedicate to PvP, the more I realize the skill issue, to be honest. I realize that there's a lot of skill that I need to build to be good at Armor Core PvP. It's definitely not one note, even using the sort of overpowered broken stuff. I got my butt handed to me a whole bunch of times, even while using some of the most broken builds in Armor Core, which tells me that there are ways to counter these strong builds. The core PvP gameplay itself is very fun. It's very interactive, especially with things called like your core expansions. I'm not going to spoil too much here, but there's a bunch of different types of core expansions that give you basically like a special move. One gives you a shield, one does a big explosion, etc. Using these to counter what your opponent is doing is a very effective strategy. For example, assault armor is a really good one. If your opponent is using double shotguns and they come in on you, you can just assault armor in their face and stun them while you're stunned, because you can activate your core expansions while you're stunned. So the person rushes in to punish you and you just explode in their face, and then they're stunned and then you punish them instead. There's just a lot of real ways of counteracting a lot of the ways that people are, you know, the powerful builds in PvP. That said, like for me, I think it's too early to give definitive evaluations of the PvP, but I'm hoping to see some gentle balance patching to fix things like stun status. So currently, for example, there are weapons that deal stun buildup. Those weapons are currently bugged. None of the armors resist it properly. Like, so there's a stat that resists the status buildup of this, and similarly to Elden Ring, it's bugged. It would be great if they would fix that. And then as well, some basic balance changes to things like your kick. The kick is just like way too generically good, and shotguns obviously are overpowered as well. Personally, I think with just a little bit of gentle balance patching, I think the PvP comes to a really great great place. Obviously, I would like to see them fix systems like adding matchmaking, that sort of thing. I do think that's a bit of a pipe dream. Overall, I would say the PvP gameplay is pretty close to being really good. If you're looking for a really great third-person action game, this is a game for you. It's a solid 8 out of 10, is I'm willing to say at this point. It is worth buying for sure at full retail price, playing to completion, trying the PvP. I don't know personally, and I'm not willing to evaluate whether the PvP will have a long, healthy lifespan in the same way that Elden Ring's PvP is, but I think it's all fun and worth playing for it's just worth the money straight up. So there you go. Those are my thoughts about the game after 100 hours of gameplay. If you guys let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments, please consider dropping a like on the video, hitting the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Genuinely, it helps support me. It helps the channel grow. Lots of people have been coming over to Twitch recently from YouTube and TikTok, so thanks so much for that. Guys, thanks for coming and saying hi. If I'm live right now, you should go over to Twitch and say hi. I'd love to meet you and say thanks for watching my YouTube videos. But yeah, there you go. That's all I have to say. Peace.
Hello, mercenary. Consider clicking that like button and absolutely annihilating that subscribe button because the coop is based. Handler Walter, out.